Hey, Chapee here, coming to you from Frasers Station, which is 100 kilometres into the crossing of the Nullabor, having headed out from Norseman. So I thought it was a good opportunity. I've got here a bit earlier to go through some of the kit. A lot of people ask me how I get all this on the bike, so probably a good way to show you how I take some of it off is how I get it on. So here we go. We'll just show you a few things that we do, and you might find some of it of interest. So at the top here, and if I'm looking away from the camera, I apologise, but I just want to get some of this stuff clipped. But at the top I have my grab bag with my snacks, so it's always good to have those and not have to rely upon stopping and spending too much on food all the time. You can have in here some nice grab snacks, so have an assortment of different things, some nuts and raisins and some apricots and just nice little things. Some apples are in there as well, so it's good to have that handy, get straight at it. If you don't have these, I suggest get these little carabiners. They're not the actual climbing carabiners, so they're not designed for climbing, but they are great for clipping things on. And a good example of that is good old thongs, and for any of you Kiwis watching, jandals. So often when you get to camp, it's hot and you don't want to be sitting there in your bike boots and going about your setup, so I always have my thongs nice and handy, ready to grab, my husqvarnas, and put those on and get your feet nice and cool and not feel so hot after the ride. So again, the carabiner keeps those two together. I have lost a pair. There's a second pair I've had before I bought the carabiners, so I could clip it onto the cargo net. So recommend those carabiners. They're just handy. They're only a few bucks to buy those from an outdoor store, and you can use those for all sort of manner of clipping things on. Not normal that I have eggs on, but I stopped and got some eggs in Norseman because I figured I like my eggs for breakfast, and of course you turn it upside down on there, you can clip it in. I'll put those down somewhere safe. Okay, the other thing that I do is, once I've got the load all up on top here like this, which is what tonight I'm just using my grab bag. So in my grab bag I've got my very cheap basic $20 dome tent that I use for overnight stops, so I don't have to unpack the whole bike. Also in there is my sleeping bag, just my change of clothes and things that I need for an overnight stay, and my self-inflating mattress, so that gets me all sort of set up for the night. But the key thing I wanted to show you here was, I think it's always handy to have when you're doing a trip like this by yourself. You can buy it by the meter, but just some stretch cord. So good old-fashioned stretch cord, but that is great just to secure that whole top load, and also leaves me some nice bungee cord there where I can actually put, like I did there today with the eggs, if I buy anything or if I take this warm jacket off, I can just slip it in underneath the bungee. But most importantly, it keeps this top load all nice and secure, so recommend you get some of that. Again, you're not talking big bucks to buy some of that. On the top I have a couple of Velcro stays. They're just really to secure the load from side to side, but this one here is all tied on, so it's that quick just to grab my grab bag, which, as I say, has got the tent, sleeping bag and self-inflating mattress and some change of clothes. So that's what I'll be setting up shortly, because I'm just stopping here the one night before I head on. That tie there was secured around the lower luggage that I've got there with a belt around that, so it can't go anywhere. And these Velcro stays, they are just super handy. They're those ones that just have a little buckle on them, so you can flip it through and then tighten it down. So can't recommend more highly enough that you have plenty of stays for things like that, whether it's Velcro or some extra cords. Okay, this one here, again, it's one of the last things. In fact, it is always usually the last thing I put on. Actually, I just tied my water bottles on here as well so they didn't go away, but I did actually lose 2 water bottles. I hate to admit it, but I was in a bit of a rush one morning and didn't follow my loading routine and forgot to secure them on. So this here is just my little triangle stool. It's usually the last thing I put on, because you can use that if you just want to have a sit down, get to camp, you want to take your boots off, put your thongs on, things like that. It's just nice to have that out and ready to go. So for me, it's last on and typically first off. Again, I just use some of that bungee cord, which allows me to take a piece of that and secure it around that bike cover that's on there. That just gives me a seat straight away that I've got off the bike when I unload. Once again, the cord comes in handy. Usually what I do, so I don't lose anything, is I'll just clip that. So I've got a nice little dog clip on the end of there. And again, these might stuff that you just may not have thought of, but it's good just to have your load secured so you're not always losing your stays or trying to find where you clip things in. So that one just clips on there, good little dog clip on a little bit of webbing, so it keeps it all intact, ready for me to quickly load it back up. This is my bike cover, which will go on tonight. It's looking like I might get a shower tonight, so again, just a couple of Velcro stays just to keep it from swinging left and right. And what I use here is, actually I found this one morning when I was walking on the beach back home, was a dog collar had washed up, so perfect thing. Again, I secure that through the belt, the leather belt that's around this load, and that load's secured down to the bike so nothing can go anywhere. And that just means that, again, it's one of the last things I put on. So the bike cover, I've always got it, I lay that on the ground. Usually if I'm doing a full unload, I lay the bike cover down on the ground, and then I can keep the stuff from getting wet or anything. And if it does happen to rain while you're unloading, you got your bike cover you can throw over everything. So in there, bike cover. But here's another little handy thing that you may not think to do, but when you're trying to get a bike cover in here, and this cover here is off an old camping chair that I had, perfect size to put the bike cover in. I'll actually take it out because I've got to use it today and put over the bike. But one of the things I do is have a nice little bit of dowel in there, just so it keeps it all nice and rigid, so when you're pushing it back into the bag, it goes in there nice and easily. And that bit of dowel is actually part of my, it just rolls out nice and easy. And that piece of dowel that's in there, that actually is just part of my workout kit as well. I use that for doing bench presses and things off the stretch cord. So handy to have that, nice little bit of defence to have inside your tent if you need something to ward off any would-be's. That'll do the job maybe. So that's in there. Then we get down to what everything else is actually secured. I'm not taking this all off the bike tonight because it's that's the beauty of an overnight stop, is I can just grab the grab bag, load that back up, and I can be up and on the road within sort of easily half an hour. But here's my top 5 things, or one of my top 5 things that I say is a must-have when you're doing a long trip, and that's the cargo net. Bought those in America when we were doing Sturgis back in 2012, and I have used this extensively on that trip and ever since. These are brilliant. So that one actually secures down over the base load, and then I've got the other bungees to secure the top load, but they are brilliant. It just means you can get everything nice and tight and secure, and recommend it. And then I put some extra things, like that's my hat there, that if I need to grab that, I've got that on the outside. The other thing I can't speak more highly about is Andy Straps. That's S-T-R-A-P-Z, Andy Straps, Australian company, Australian made. These things are absolutely brilliant. So these are Velcro, but they're on stretch webbing. So the beauty of that is when you're trying to get this load all secured, because underneath there is my tent bag, my clothing bag, another smaller clothing bag on the bottom. That goes round through my carrier frame, so they take the back seat off, stretch that up, and it's got nice little handholds underneath, so you can get your hand under there, stretch it up. Same with the one coming from the other side, so I crisscross these, I've got 2 of them, and stretch that right up, tighten that, and I tell you what, that sticks like to a bear's fur. So I can't recommend them enough. They are brilliant. I've got 4 of them I use 2 more on the other side when I put my side load on there. So Andy Straps, I think it's based in Melbourne. If you search Andy and Straps, S-T-R-P-Z, you'll find them there. But do yourself a favour, buy some of those. They come in 1200 and 1500 lengths. So for me, that's a must-have on a long trip because they help secure all this down. So I've got another web strap that holds it all down to the frame. Those go right around, stretched over. That's going nowhere. And behind here, goes in plastic today because it was a little bit showery, is my pillow. Again, this was just a little purchase I got from, I think it was Aldi. They're not expensive. It was something like, I don't even think it was $15, it was less than that. But that sits in there in behind my back and gives me some lumbar support while I'm riding. It's a perfect shape for that. So it sits in behind there and makes the ride really comfortable. But stick that in plastic. If you get a shower, it doesn't mean your pillow's going to be wet at night. What else can I show? I mean, I've got the hard case at the back, which is it's not a Harley Davidson one or anything. It's a Shad SH29 litre. That is brilliant because I can lock it up, put my valuables in there. I've got my dry bag 30 litre over here, which is my pantry. Got all my dry good food in there. Like tonight I'm just cooking my own meal tonight. I'll go over and enjoy the campfire a little later. Water bottles, they're secured here on the outside so that I can get at them nice and easily. I bought these ones, which are Michelle Bridges water bottles. They're kind of cool because they give you time slots of when you should be consuming your water. Never so more important than when you're out there riding on hot days and dehydration, so it's important to make sure you're actually taking your water supply in. So this one here takes, I think it actually takes over a litre, but they're sold as a litre. Nice little easy drink tops on them. So I have 2 of those, and then I have my other coffee holder on the other side that holds just under a litre as well, so it gives me plenty of water. Because at the moment here, for example, they were just saying that they're on water rations, so they're having to get their water in. Hasn't rained here for a while, although it has today by the look of it. So hopefully that'll stop them having to have water rations. But it pays to carry your own water for cooking and for your drinking purposes. Pretty much that's today's piece. I'll come back to you more with my top 5 items and show you more about them. Certainly one of them is my little manual cruise control, because the 2006 Softail Deluxe, it doesn't have cruise control, but that works brilliant. It's just a little triangular device that you tighten in on your throttle. I'll show you that when I move the camera shortly, and that's a must-have. It takes the stress off your wrist on these long rides. My Andy straps, must-have. My cargo net, must-have for a long trip, most definitely. Other than that, I think it's all really about just making sure you get your loads secure and having the right camping equipment. I'll do a review on the Helinox stretcher